The Association of Residential Letting Agencies is the UK's main professional body in the industry. Joining me now is the new president of the organisation, Peter Savage. Peter, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yes, we actually have 7,000 members now, covering 18,000 offices across the country.
Well, this is a very good opportunity then to speak to you from a tenant's perspective, because of course, letting agencies, right or wrong, don't have the best reputation from a renter's point of view. So tell me, how is ARLA set up to help renters?
Well, our members act impeccably, and it is our role to ensure that they're professional and that they and their client landlords are completely compliant with all current regulations and legislation, which therefore protects the tenants.
So, Peter, what are the objectives of ARLA?
There's only one main objective, and that is to bring in full regulation of our industry across the board in the UK. It really is called for, and in the absence of governments being willing to do that and being willing to protect the consumer, where we believe they should do, is that we still want to maintain the high standards that we do so, and educate the consumer on what to look for so they don't get ripped off by those few unscrupulous people who choose to denigrate the reputation of our industry.
You are, of course, the prime governing body for letting agents. What does this cover exactly?
We are a professional member association, and we do advocate most certainly the full regulation of our industry, which as yet the government doesn't wish to take up.
So, for example, if your letting agent's tenant has an issue, how could they come to you to seek advice or help?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on what sort of level you're talking about. I mean, directly to ARLA would be something that really a tenant would not do. However, it's a great source of information on our website with regard to student lets, how to rent, a brochure that was introduced by the government last year, how to avoid fraud in rentals, etc., etc. So it's a really good source for someone who's not rented before to go on the site first and read the do's and don'ts of what to look out for. And of course, the most important thing to look out for is an ARLA member.
Well, ARLA has been about since the 80s, if I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. So I imagine the property landscape has changed considerably over that time.
Indeed.
So when it comes to these sort of issues, are rights sort of in favour of tenants, or do contracts really favour sort of the landlords?
No, I strongly feel that the tenancy is very well protected, and in fact, I mean, I remember well coming to London in the days before the Housing Act was changed in 1988, and latterly in 1989 when the assured short-hold tenancy was agreement. It was quite dangerous for an individual to rent out their property, really, and there was no such thing as buy-to-rent in those days. And latterly in the 90s, when it became the default documents in a short-hold tenancy, that led to the growth in the private rental sector, because again, if you're not able to remove a tenant at some stage for whatever reason, you know, A, the lenders would not lend, and B, no one would invest their money in the industry. So, but believe me, you know, the tenant is well protected in this country.
Well, of course, you know, you would probably say that all letting agents are legitimate. There are some bad ones out there. So for a tenant who's looking to rent a property, what should they really look out for when they're approaching these people? You
would make sure that A, they're a member of a redress scheme. Check, these days they're obliged to publish whether they're members of a client money protection scheme and whether they're a member or not. There's no compulsion to be a member of such a scheme, but why would an ethical agent not be a member of such a scheme? And they have to demonstrate that quite clearly in the offices. If one goes to the ARLA website or even the government website on the private rental sector, there's some really good advice out there. And we know one of the major ways that we can get rid of that minority of bad agents is to educate the consumer. And I think that's really what we need to, you know, we're really keen on doing that. So please do visit the website.
Well, for example, if your landlord or your letting agency has been quite naughty in some respects, could you come and complain to your organisation?
Of course. Your first port of call should always be the agent themselves. Since October of last year, it's incumbent upon all letting agents to be a member of one of the 3 redress schemes. All our members are members of what is known as the TPO. Through that, they're obliged to have a complaints procedure, and before escalating it to someone else, you must exhaust the complaints procedure of that particular agent. After which, or if they, for example, if they should ignore your complaint, or if they're taking unreasonable time over your complaint, and you could therefore escalate it onto the Ombudsman. I mean, the Ombudsman is able to actually make an award to the tenant should they find in their favour, and that can be up to £25,000. Unfortunately, we haven't got the power to make such awards. However, even after dealing with successfully with the Ombudsman, if that tenant still feels that they feel some disciplinary measures should be taken against the agent via their professional body, then they again are still able to complain to us directly, and we can fine or throw out the member from our association.
Okay, so from a tenant's point of view, I think a big issue that often comes up is knowing who's responsible for what, the letting agent, the landlord, or the tenant. Do you offer advice in this sort of area?
ARLA as an association would not, but if you're talking about a good quality letting agent, then you most certainly would. And in the majority of cases, I find that these sort of questions, as a practitioner, would come up during the early days of that tenancy. It's quite often a matter of expectation and whether the agent manages the property or does not. Tenants that came through my door, that, you know, even if we didn't manage it, if they felt they needed some assistance, we're happy to give them that advice.
So in general terms, who is responsible for what? Can you sort of give me some examples?
The landlord, it's incumbent upon him to ensure that the gas appliances are safe and checked yearly with certificates, electrical safety, fire and health regulations. I mean, the list is endless, which is why in a majority of cases I would still recommend going back to an ARLA agent, because they are the ones that are up to date.
Peter, thank you.